Hare Krishna. Welcome all the devotees for today's session on Srimad Bhagwatam. We'll start. Uh, Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate
नमो
Vasudevaya.
भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत् नष्टप्राणेषु नेते भक्ति श्लोके भक्ति नष्टि हरे कृष्णा दंडवत प्रणाम. Today we continuing Srimad Bhagwatam Canto 11 chapter 22 shloka number 8 to 12. एकस्मिन्नपि दृश्यन्ते प्रविष्टानि इतराणि च पूर्वस्मिन् वा परस्मिन् वा तत्त्वे तत्त्वानि सर्वशः पौरो अपर्य अतः अमीशां प्रसंख्यानम् अभिप्सताम् यथा विविक्तं यत् वक्त्रं गृह्णीमः युक्तिसम्भवात् अनाद्य आदि अनादि अविद्या
Anadi avidya yuktasya purushah asya atmavedanam स्वतः न
पुरुषस्य
संभवाद
आत्मवेदनं स्वतः न
अन्यस्तत्त्वज्ञ
संभवात् अन्य तत्त्वज्ञः ज्ञानदः भवेत् पुरुष ईश्वरयोः अत्र न वैलक्षण्यम् अणु अपि तद् अन्य कल्पना अपार्था ज्ञानं च प्रकृतेः गुणः प्रकृति गुण साम्यं वै प्रकृतेन आत्मनो गुणाः सत्वं रजः तम इति स्थिति उत्पत्ति अंत हेतव. Translation and purport by the Srila Prabhupada Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All subtle material elements are actually present within their gross effects. Similarly, all gross elements are present within their subtle causes. Since material creation takes place by progressive manifestation of elements from subtle to gross, thus we can find all material elements within any single element. Therefore, no matter which of these thinker is speaking, and regardless of whether in their calculations they include material elements within their previous subtle causes or else within the subsequent manifest products, I accept their conclusion as authoritative because a logical explanation can always be given for each of the different theories. Because a person who has been covered by ignorance since time immemorial is not capable of effecting his own self-realization. There must be some other personality who is in factual knowledge of the absolute truth and can impart this knowledge to him. According to knowledge in the material mode of goodness, there is no qualitative difference between the living entity and the supreme controller. The imagination of qualitative difference between them is useless speculation. Nature exists originally as the equilibrium of the three material modes which pertain only to nature, not to the transcendental spirit soul. These modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, are the effective causes of the creation, maintenance, and destruction of this universe. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Since material elements are present within each other, there are innumerable ways to construe and categorize the material creation of God. Ultimately, however, the significant element is God Himself, who is the basis of all the transformation and permutations of the material cosmos. The creation of the material world takes place by a progression from subtle to gross elements, as explained in the Sankhya Yoga system of Kapil Deva. The example may be given that we find the dormant existence of an other pot within mud and also the existence of mud within the earthen pot. Similarly, one element is present within another, and ultimately all elements rest within the Supreme Personality of God, who is simultaneously within everything. By such explanations, Krishna consciousness constitutes the ultimate scientific methodology for factually understanding this universe. Although innumerable philosophers may rationally describe the material creation different of one cannot perfect one's knowledge without Krishna consciousness. An intellectual person should therefore not be falsely proud simply because he has ascertained a particular truth within the material world. The Lord here states that one who follows the Vedic way of analysis will undoubtedly have many insights concerning the material creation. Ultimately, however, one must become a devotee of the Supreme Lord and perfect one's knowledge in Krishna consciousness. Although the Lord tolerates different methods of calculating causes within their effects and material effects within their causes, there cannot be any speculation regarding the two spiritual elements found in this universe, namely the individual soul and the super soul. Lord Krishna clearly stated in this verse that the living entity is incapable of effecting his own enlightenment. The Supreme Lord is Tattvagya, omniscient, and Jnanada, the spiritual master of the entire universe. Sri Uddhav. Some philosophers describe 25 elements and others 26. The difference is the 26 elements include a separate category for the individual soul and the supreme soul. Lord Krishna, whereas the proponents of 25 elements artificially merge the two transcendental categories of Jiva Tattva and Vishnu Tattva, hiding the eternal supremacy of the personality of Godhead. Knowledge based on the modes of material nature cannot rise to the transcendental platform where personality of Godhead exists as the supreme enjoyer of eternal spiritual varieties of form, color, flavor, musical sound, and loving affairs. Mundane philosophers simply mount enjoyment and material renunciation, being victims of Mayavadi impersonal perception of the absolute truth. They cannot achieve the shelter of the personality of Godhead and thus cannot understand him. Because foolish impersonal philosophers consider themselves, they are unable to appreciate that loving service exists on the spiritual platform. Stubbornly rejecting subservience to the personality of Godhead, the impersonalists are eventually overwhelmed by the illusory potency of the Lord and undergo the miseries of material existence. The Vaishnavas, on the other hand, are not envious of the personality of Godhead. They gladly accept his shelter and supremacy, and thus the Lord personally takes charge of his devotees and
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Krishna,
Hare Ram,
Krishna,
Hare Ram, Ram
Krishna,
Ram,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
Yes, Mataji.
Screen is not seen.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna,
Thus the
Krishna
Lord
Krishna,
personally takes
Hare
charge of
Hare.
his devotees
Hare
and
Ram,
enlightens them,
Ram
filling
Hare
them
Hare.
with his own
Hare
transcendental bliss.
Krishna, Hare
Spiritual
Krishna.
service to the Supreme Lord is in this way free from the disappointment and depression of material service. According to certain philosophers, there are 25 elements. Among
There are 25 elements, among which a single category is stipulated for both the individual living entity and the Supreme Lord. Such impersonal knowledge is declared by the Lord to be material. Jnanam cha prakrutehe gunaha. Such knowledge can, however, be accepted to establish the qualitative identity of the Supreme Lord and the living entities who expand from him. Materialistic persons sometimes believe that there is a heaven, but also think that human beings are identical with their material bodies and qualitatively and perpetually separated from the Supreme Lord. Knowledge of the Lord's qualitative oneness with the living entity, as described in this verse, refutes the materialistic concept of life and partially
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Partially establishes the absolute truth. The Chaitanya Mahaprabhu described the actual situation as Achintya Bhedabhed Tattva. The supreme controller and the controlled living entities are simultaneously one and different.
in the material mode of goodness, the oneness is pursued as one proceeds further to the stage of Vishuddha Sattva or purified spiritual. One finds spiritual variety within the quality completely one's knowledge of the absolute truth. The words no vailakshamyam anu api boldly affirm that the individual living entity is indisputably part and parcel of the Supreme Lord and qualitatively one with him. Any philosophical attempts
Philosophical attempt to separate the living entity from the Supreme Lord and deny his eternal servitude to the Lord is thus
has
refuted. Speculation arriving at the conclusion that the living entity has independent existence, separate from the Lord, is described here as apartha, useless. Nevertheless, the theory of 25 elements is acceptable to the Lord as a preliminary phase in the evolution of spiritual knowledge. In Bhagavad Gita 3.27, it is stated, Prakrite kriyamani guna karmani sarvasa ahankara vimodatma karta hamiti manyate. The builder spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself to be the doer of activities which are in actuality carried out by nature. The three modes of nature in their original state of equilibrium, as well as the subsequent creation generated from the modes, are vastly more powerful than the living entity who is controlled by them. The living entity thus cannot be accepted as the actual doer or creator within the material world.
the mode of goodness is symptomized uh, by the work and the mode of ignorance by the experience of darkness. These modes of material knowledge, work and darkness have no real relation with the transcendental spirit soul, who exhibits his own qualities of eternality, bliss, and knowledge. The Sandhini, Samvit, and Ladini potency of the Supreme Lord. The material modes have no access within the kingdom of God. In the unbounded atmosphere of which the eternal living entity is meant to live. Hare Krishna. Now, thus end the purport now prayers. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Ena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Dadati Swapadantikam Vande Aham Sri Guru Sri Yuttapada Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavancha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitancha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात देशतारिणे वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्णा। दंडवत प्रणाम। Today we continuing Srimad Bhagwatam Canto 11 chapter 22, namely element of material creation. According to the name, they are giving about the knowledge or about the information of material, from which principles material creation took place. Here someone said 25, 26 we heard yesterday, and here in Bhagavad Gita also Krishna told to Arjuna that prakrute kriyamani gunai karmani sarvasya kartaham ahankar vimudata kartaham manyate. Means someone who are the ahankari, that told that aham doer, I am doer, I am controller. He can't accepting the Lord's uh, controllership or doership. But in this shloka, nicely explained about the importance and the doership or controllership about the Krishna, and how we are the servant of the servant of Krishna. Our attitude must be servitude to do service to the Supreme Lord. Prabhuji will tell you in detail. वंशाकल्पतरुभ्ये च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हरे कृष्ण। दंडवत प्रणाम।
Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Ideally, there is no difference between ultimate enjoyer and the supreme control. To presuppose any distinction between them is senseless. Ordinary knowledge that we get in schools, colleges, or maybe classes nowadays is simply a quality of material nature, not of the soul proper. The raw substance of the material nature is designated according to its different phases. In the mode of goodness, it is known as knowledge. In mode of passion, activity, and in the mode of darkness as ignorance. So these are couple of important aspects when it comes to understand what is knowledge and what is not knowledge. This is something which Krishna is explaining very nicely to Uddhava in this Uddhava Gita. So yesterday we had come to a
Song.
stage. Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Yesterday we had come to a stage where we understood that the gross and the material elements they enter into one another, and this becomes the cause why the philosophers calculate the number in different ways. Ideally, all certain material elements are present within the gross effects. Similarly, gross elements within the subtle causes. And since this creation is step by step manifestation, subtle to gross, so we can find material elements within every single element. So Krishna says that irrespective of the yogi who is thinking, speaking, the truth is that I consider their conclusions authoritative. And a logical explanation can always be given for each of the different theories. But a person who is covered by ignorance is not capable of effecting his own self realization. There is always a need for some other personality who is in actual knowledge of absolute truth and can impart this knowledge to him. And that is where the role of a guru becomes very, very important, because it is guru only who can give the knowledge as it is and prevent us from falling prey to wrongful activities such as Mayavad. So, though Krishna is explaining everything, is reiterating that it is only Bhakti Yoga which is topmost always. And how do we develop that? We develop it through the mercy of the devotees and the Acharya, that is Guru. Now, when it comes to the mode of goodness, ideally it is same between any living entity, excuse me, and the supreme personality. And if someone is thinking of having a difference between them, then it is useless speculation. Now, nature exists originally in equilibrium of the three material modes, and they are the effective causes of creation, maintenance, and destruction of this universe. Baji has been so merciful upon us. He has made us understand it so nicely. Just like Krishna tells, Prakriti Kriyamanani Gunai Karmani Sarvasa Ahankara Vimudatma Karta Hamiti Manyate. So the three modes are maintaining equilibrium, but then they are very powerful. The living entity, on the other hand, he is not actually doing any activity, not being creator. So it is less. The mode of goodness, we see, because it is something wherein the person has experience of knowledge. Mode of passion, the person has experience of work. And when it comes to darkness, there's no relation with the soul itself. Because the soul exhibits qualities, eternality, peace, knowledge, Sandhini Samvitala, Adini potencies of the Lord. And that is why Lord's kingdom is a place which is full of happiness. And we aspire to go back there permanently, forever. Hare Krishna. Cheto Darpanama